This is SBR's Football Betting Daily.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to SBR Sports Picks. My name is Peter Loshak. This is the pre-snap read show for Wednesday, November 11th, Thanksgiving week. What an insane time in the sports betting calendar we are in the midst of right now. College basketball all over the place. Crazy, wacky stuff going on in college football. NFL in full swing. 15 NBA and NHL games going on today. It's just complete insanity. Ian Cameron, overall in this show, you were doing very, very well. Last week, though, you had a very down week. Joe Gavassi coming off a winning week, 3-1 in our show. Ian Cameron, how you holding up right about now, 4 o'clock Eastern time, November 21st?
Well, I'm holding up good, Peter. Happy Thanksgiving that watches from the United States. It is a crazy time of year. NBA, college basketball, NFL, college football, NHL, all coming at you all at once. Don't do it. Don't handle everything all at once.
No?
If you feel like it's too many teams, too many games, take your time and just focus on what you think you know best at this time of year, because it can overwhelm you in a hurry.
What if you don't know anything best? What if you don't know anything about anything?
Well, then you need to be following a different hobby or a different occupation. Or you need to be
following
or doing something better with your money.
Yes, or listening to Ian Cameron, people like Ian Cameron, Joe Gavassi, and Al McMorty. Joe Gavassi, you're coming off a great week with us last week. Very nice calls, 3-1. The only loser was Syracuse. I was on that one myself. How are things going for you, Joe Gavassi? Your website is joegavassisports.com.
It is the biggest sports betting week of the year with the crossover season in full thrust. As you said, full schedule of college basketball each and every day. Wall-to-wall ball for us for the next 4 days. One of the most exciting times of the year for this bureau.
Definitely. All right. Well, right now I have been focusing on the things that I do well, as Ian Cameron suggested, which is college basketball and NHL. So I've been paying less attention this week to NBA and college football and NFL. But we will see what Joe Gavassi and Ian Cameron and later on Al McMorty can tell us about some of the games that we're going to cover. Joe Gavassi, of course, takes games that we ask him to cover. Joe Gavassi, the first game we're going to cover with you right now that we asked you to take is Michigan, Ohio State, the big game. And obviously from a betting perspective, look at this. Ohio State catching big points against Michigan, 4.5 or 5 points. That is a lot of line respect that the market is giving Michigan. It's understandable, though. Ohio State has clearly been overvalued this year. I think they've lost 6 out of the last 7 or 7 out of the last ATS. Last week, of course, they went to overtime in a game where they were a 2-touchdown favorite. Clearly, up till now, Ohio State has been overvalued, and now they're catching points against Michigan. Do you think that they are one more week going to be a good fade, Joe Gavassi?
I do think that, and I'll give you a clue about who I like in this game. We're going to make this the revenge game of the week in my point spread prognosis newsletter. Pair of 10-1 straight up teams vying for the Big Ten showdown and the right to face Northwestern, get to the Big Ten championship game, and in the case of Michigan, maybe even a shot at the Final Four, providing they get a couple more wins. Last year, Ohio State prevailed in this matchup 31-20, outrushing Michigan 226-100. How strange does that seem this year? Nonetheless, it was the 13th time in the last 14 years the Buckeyes had prevailed, including all 6 times in the Urban Meyer area. Speaking of Urban Meyer, one of the greatest records of any coach at his school in the history of football, so far as coach of Ohio State, playing a very rugged national and Big Ten schedule, he's 83-9 straight up, including 40-3 straight up on this field, and now we get him as a home dog. But as we've spoken about before on this show, this team just not the same as the preseason turmoil that has plagued this team finally has begun to show up on the betting line. This is a great chance for Michigan State to gain their revenge. Remember, this is the 4th revenge opportunity for the Wolverines this college football season, as they have already defeated Michigan State 21-7, Penn State 42-7, and Wisconsin 38-13 in their revenge games. This would have them hit for the cycle all four games that they have revenge in the Big Ten, and I think they do just that. How do they do that? Well, they do that with the number 1 defense in the country, a unit allowing just 14 points a game, 235 yards per game, and 4.0 yards per play. Michigan catches Ohio State at the perfect time and gets their revenge.
All right. I'm still not sure what I think here. I'm thinking that maybe Ohio State now might actually be, now they're in a position of getting points. A pretty sizable underdog might actually be worth a shot. Joe Gavassi, we're going to give you -4.5, -108. It is a split line, and Ohio State has been a terrible bet this year, but in the 2 games with competitive spreads, they actually did well. Their one game where they did actually get a cover over the last 7 games was in the Michigan State game, where they were just a 3.5-point favorite. And the only other time this year where they had a competitive spread was against Penn State. They were at Penn State. They lost by 3, but they won that game. So clearly, Ohio State seems to be overvalued this year when they are a big favorite against teams that they supposedly are outclassed. But in games with competitive spreads, the degree to which Ohio State is overvalued appears to be much more muted. And now, for the first time this year, they're getting points. I got to be honest, I'm thinking maybe Ohio State might be the play here. Ian Cameron, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, from a matchup perspective, I like Michigan, but I don't like the number at all.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking 4.5 here. Jim Harbaugh and the Wolverines have not shown yet any sort of recent history that they can go on the road and beat ranked opposition. I mean, that's all there is to it. They didn't do it against Notre Dame. You can argue that this is going to be their next best opponent since then. There's problems with this Ohio State defense. There may be problems with this team just in general. They have not looked the same since the Urban Meyer stuff blew over. Since he came back on the sideline, it's looked like a team that's made mistakes, turned the ball over, penalties, bad defense, shredded on the ground. That could be an issue here, facing this Michigan team that obviously likes to run the football quite a bit. But the one thing I just can't get by, even though I'm leaning Michigan, would I bet them before I bet Ohio State, I can't get over the Urban Meyer underdog track record.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just good, it's great.
Right.
He's been an underdog only 4 times at Ohio State, 4-0 straight up, 4-0 against the spread. I believe he won all 4 of those games outright as an underdog. We remember Cardale Jones against Alabama in the college football playoff years ago. They beat Oregon in the national title game as an underdog. I think they were an underdog either last year or 2 years ago. They won that game outright. He's just been phenomenal in the underdog role. Good enough that I'm worried that this price range is not the one I'm comfortable with backing Michigan. And so lean Michigan, but will not be an official play.
Exactly. And every time Ohio State is an underdog, you might look at the Ohio State team this year and say, like, all right, but that was in years past. This year they're terrible. But every time Ohio State is an underdog, there's a legit reason for them to be so. Either they are undervalued, or either they are underwhelming in terms of their expectations, or they're playing, the top team in the nation or another elite team. So there's always a reason why Ohio State is an underdog, as there is a reason why they are here as well. I'm leaning under, and I'm leaning Ohio State here. Ian Cameron, what do you think about a shot with the under? As you said, there might be a lot of running in this game, and Urban Meyer likes to run up the score a lot of times when he's a big favorite and playing teams that he can just dominate. In a situation like this, I'm thinking the under might be the play at 57. There's a split line, 56, 56.5, or 57 at the Greek, and I'm leaning Ohio State. What do you think about the under, Ian?
Yeah, I don't hate it, Pete. I don't hate it. I'm probably not going to be involved in the total, but I will say this. Ohio State and Michigan, they've had this weird way of having these, drabby, low-scoring, plodding type of football games in recent seasons, and we could have that here. Again, it's an early start game. You've got 2 teams that I know Ohio State's defense has been shaky, but it's not like Michigan is a explosive, big play offense. These are going to be methodical drives, read option on the Ohio State side, methodical drives that should take time off the clock. The under's already been bet down a bit. I could see why. It looked a little high at 59, down to 56, 56.5 now. I lean under too, but I'm going to stay away from the total.
All right. Well, I'd think about this one a little bit more later on in the week, because right now all I'm thinking about is games like Coppin State against Southeastern Missouri State in college basketball. But later in the week, I will pay more attention to these big college football games. And as of right now, definitely leaning under, and a modest lean to Ohio State as well. But Joe Gavassi is going to make an official pick with Michigan -4.5, -108. That's the best line right now at Pinnacle. Now let's move on to Georgia Tech. Georgia is another team that does not have a good record ATS this year when they're a huge favorite, over 20 points. But in games with more modest spreads, they've been very good. 4-2 ATS with every in the 6 games where they've had a spread under 20 points, and they're given about 17 right now to Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech has been very good, though, this year, and I talked about this in the beginning of the year. With Georgia Tech, it matters because they run the same system every year. Their recruiting is very, very important, and this year their recruiting was better than it has been in recent years. So I said at the beginning of the year I was expecting Georgia Tech to be a good bet this year and to continue to be a good bet in the next few years, and that has panned out. Now they're going up against Georgia with a big spread here. This is another game that we asked Joe Gavassi to take. What's your take on this one, Joe?
Every week in the point spread prognosis, I analyze a team that's going to operate with ICE. That's intensity, conviction, and execution. And of course, the Georgia Tech option fits that to a T. Once again this year, as they lead the nation in running, averaging 354 running yards per game at 5.9 yards per rush. This is also a great example of a series history between rivals. 2 years ago, Georgia Tech came into Georgia, first year for Kirby Smart, and came away with a 28-27 outright victory. Last year, Georgia thumped Georgia Tech in Atlanta as 11-point road chalk with a 471-226 yardage edge, holding the Georgia Tech ground game to just 188 yards. Those two events lifted the record of the road team in this series to a phenomenal 17-3, 85% against the spread in the last 2 decades. This year, each of these teams enters on a 4-game winning streak. Georgia Tech has their bowl bid in hand, and Georgia, of course, looking forward to the SEC championship game next week as winner of the SEC East. Georgia Tech option, as I said, offers with intensity, conviction, and execution, and it makes them 13-7 against the spread in recent 20 rolls as an underdog. I like Georgia Tech in this big dog revenging role with that great option play, playing among the best ball they have in recent seasons. Georgia Tech will be my selection, plus the 17 points.
All right, it's plus 17 minus 106. That's the best line right now at SBR odds. Makes some sense to me, Ian Cameron. Don't necessarily want to get in front of Georgia here as a favorite of anything less than 20 points. But, if you gave me a free play right now, I'd probably put it on Georgia Tech. What do you think, Ian?
Georgia Tech's been a conundrum for me because I thought this team was overvalued. I didn't think they were all that great, all that special earlier this season. And I remember betting against them when they took Duke, and they ended up Duke winning that game. And but since then, Georgia Tech's played some of their best football ever since. They've been on a tremendous run.
Not to cut you off, Ian Cameron, but the reports that I read were that this is one of the stronger recruiting classes that Georgia Tech has had in a few years. So that's why I was expecting them to be maybe a better team and a better bet in subsequent years, and then the second part of this season when the recruiting class got some experience under their belt.
Yeah, that's true. That could be something to that because they have played their best football of late, no question. And Georgia, they'd be more than happy. I'm sure Kirby Smart would be more than happy to go out there, win this game by a touchdown, 10. He doesn't care about winning by 17 or more. Now, Mark Richt in Georgia, when he was here, they dominated this team. Doesn't mean it's going to happen here. Yeah, Georgia Tech plus 17. I'd lean there. I'm going to stay away, but you're right. Georgia's got the SEC championship on deck. They're on schedule to play in that game. Just get in there and win the game. Winning by margin is of no consequence. So I'm not going to be involved, but I could see the Georgia Tech perspective.
All right, so it's going to be a pass for Ian Cameron, and Joe Gavazzi is going to take Georgia Tech plus 17 minus 106. Again, this is a game that we assigned to him, not a game that he requested himself. Now let's get into the 2 games that Joe Gavazzi did request. First one is going to be Pittsburgh and Miami, and what a revelation Pittsburgh has been, right? 6 straight covers. Miami last week, they were playing another team with some issues this year. The one difference is that, Miami has a good defense and Virginia Tech kind of really doesn't. So I believe in this show we said that we liked Miami, and of course they did finally get a cover after a bunch of weeks in a row where they were losing ATS. Pitt has covered 6 games in a row. They're catching points here. What do you like here, Joe?
Every week I analyze the Penthouse Pick as one of my 20 games in the $9 point spread prognosis, available at joegavazzisports.com. And this week my Penthouse Pick is on Miami of Florida. Things have come full circle. It was exactly 1 year ago this weekend that Miami came into Pittsburgh at 10-0 straight up with thoughts of playing in the national championship round robin, getting to the Final Four. But when they left Pittsburgh with a 24-14 loss as 12-point road favorite, it sent them reeling to an 0-3 straight up an ATS finish to the season, and has perpetuated their downfall this season as they now enter the game, despite the cover versus Virginia Tech last week, on a 4-11 ATS slide. But as we both said, Miami came to life last week with that 38-14 road victory at Virginia Tech, profiting from a +3 turnover margin along the way. As for the rush defense, well, it has been the strength of the Miami team. and that plays very well against the Pitt strength, their running game. Let's talk about Pitt for a minute. Miami would have probably laid around 2 TDs in this game at the start of the season, but because Pitt has been so very strong this year, this line has been chopped down quite a bit. Now, many will be siding with this ferocious Panther, 4 straight wins, 6 straight covers, a ground game averaging 241 on 6.1 yards per rush, and that's helped quarterback Pickett as the defenses have had to stack the line a bit. In fact, Pickett has not thrown an interception in his last 5 games. Talk about your live running dog. But where's the motivation for Pitt? They just beat Wake Forest to get the Coastal Division title in hand and are now looking forward next week to facing the number 2 Clemson Tiger for the ACC crown. This is a vacation in sunny Florida for a Pitt Panther who can hardly wait to get out of the doom and gloom of November in the Berg. Flat spot for the Panther against a very focused Miami team with bowl bid in hand and focusing on a last home game revenger against a team that ended their undefeated season last year. We'll take a contrary favored play, make the play, make sure it's for enough to get your down payment on your penthouse.
Wow, a penthouse play from Joe Gavassi. It is a contrarian play as far as the market is concerned. The early money so far has come in on Pittsburgh. They opened at 5.5, and as of right now, the market is uncertain. 4, 4.5, and 5 are all widely available. So we can give you Miami, Florida, -4, -106. Pinnacle is leading the way with money coming in on Pittsburgh. They have the best number right now on Miami, -4, -106. The Greek is still at 5, and that might make some sense here. Ian Cameron, what do you think? Pittsburgh 6 straight covers. Now finally the market is giving them respect, and now is when we want to pivot and maybe fade them here. What do you think?
Pitt's been absolutely phenomenal for me. Absolutely terrific. I've been on them almost every week recently.
Very nice.
The last 3 games, Virginia Tech, Wake, and I'm pretty sure I had them on this show as well in these recent shows, Pittsburgh. But I obviously this spot smells for Pittsburgh. I mean, you're talking about Miami. You've already clinched the ACC championship. As Joe mentioned, you're in the warm weather of Miami. This could be a vacation, a celebration of all that you've accomplished this season, getting to the ACC championship. I understand situationally, this is a Miami spot and it's not a Pitt spot. But I'm not laying anything with Miami. I don't like this team very much. I know they beat up a sad Virginia Tech team last week, 38-14, but they only outgained them by 4 yards, feasted on turnovers. It's a bad Tech defense. I just don't think Miami's that good, to be honest with you. So that's a pass for me. I know Pitt, this is a terrible spot for them, a good one for Miami, playing with revenge. But I just don't think enough of Miami to pull the trigger on Miami. So I'm staying out of this game.
You don't like their defense? Their defense was the reason why we liked them last week. And, as Joe said, it might be a good matchup for them, that it's where their strength will really matter finally in this spot against this opponent that they're facing.
No, their defense played better last week, but Virginia Tech's offense has been a little bit dormant too in recent weeks. I still think it's going to be a challenge for them. The thing that's let me down with Miami is their offense. Their quarterback play has been spotty. They haven't been able to run the ball consistently. And even their defense, for the most part, if they're not forcing turnovers, they haven't been getting the stops in terms of yardage allowed and points allowed compared to last season. So I'm just not a big fond enough believer in this Miami team. Even though there's a good spot for them, I'm going to stay off this one and stay on the sideline.
Okay, fair enough. Joe Gavassi is going to take Miami, Florida, -4, -106. We'll see where this line closes. Maybe it'll close closer back to where it opened at 5.5, and Ian Cameron's going to pass. The next game we're going to cover with you, Joe Gavassi, is the last game, the second game that you requested, Minnesota against Wisconsin. And Wisconsin has just not been a good team overall, ATS this year, where they're a huge favorite, a mid-sized favorite, a dog. They just have been overvalued this year. They are coming off a cover in overtime, but before that, they were losing ATS week in and week out. And they're going up against Minnesota. Minnesota kind of surprised me this year. I thought Minnesota was going to be maybe a fade team and an under-trending team. I thought their offense was going to be anemic this year, but they've had some good offensive games recently, and I stand corrected on Minnesota. Wisconsin's about a 10-point favorite. Why'd you pick this one, Joe Gavassi? I'm curious.
At this price point, this becomes my cheap thrills game of the week.
Oh.
In the Penthouse Picks point spread prognosis. You can pick that up for just $9 at joegavazzisports.com. Make yourself a lot of money doing so. Yes, this is a cheap line. Wisconsin was -18 when they faced Minnesota last year. In the process, they shut out the Gophers 31-0 outrushing them 287 to 93. Badgers have been disappointing, though, as you pointed out this season. 7-4 straight up, 3-8 against the spread, and minus 74 net AFP, failing against the number handily on many occasions. As a result, if we were to play this game the beginning of the season, well, Wisconsin would have probably been a 24-point favorite in this contest. So the line has been adjusted quite a bit downward. Now, maybe it's because the quarterback for Wisconsin, Hornibrook, will not make post. Maybe he will. In either case, Cohn will step in. And is there that much of a downgrade? I'm not sure. I don't think it really matters. There will be some love for Minnesota in this game, as they'll be playing with need for their bowl qualifying 6th win after losing at home to Northwestern last week. But Minnesota, we want no part of them on the road, because in 3 games against Big Ten opponents, they've allowed 45 points per game and 305 rushing yards per game at 8.3 yards per rush. Clearly, that plays right into Wisconsin does best, as they average 277 on 6.3 yards per rush. I believe Wisconsin will have their way all day on the ground against Minnesota, and at this cheap price point will easily surpass the 10-point impost, providing their fans in Madison with cheap thrills this Saturday.
Ooh, I like it. Cheap thrills. I like it. Joe Gavassi. Yeah, Ian Cameron, a lot of times you do see that. These teams that are clearly overvalued for like 80 or 85% of a season. Then at the very, very end, when the market is just giving up on them and is just throwing as many points as they can at you, begging you to take them, that's when they start to have point spread value. We could be seeing that here with Wisconsin. They opened at 10. They've gotten bet up to 10.5. What do you think, Ian Cameron? Joe Gavassi makes a very, very compelling argument here.
Yeah, I mean, Wisconsin has been a tough team for me to get a read on. I'll be honest, I'm looking at the other side, though, in this game. I'm actually looking at Minnesota. Plus, but their road record's spotty. There's no question. It's a little bit of a leap of faith here. And the last week's loss against Northwestern, a little bit dangerous for sure. 24-14, didn't really get things going offensively in this game. But you look at Wisconsin as of late, and especially in the double-digit home favorite role, 35.5-point home chalk against New Mexico, didn't cover. 23.5-point home favorite against BYU, lost that game outright. 18-point favorite against Nebraska at home, didn't cover. 29-point favorite at home against Rutgers, didn't cover, only won by 14 against lowly Rutgers. The 1-point spread cover is double-digit chalk at home was Illinois. And Illinois, you could argue, has quit, has flat out thrown in the towel on this season with how bad they've been. So I don't think Minnesota's quit. Minnesota can still play for it, but they're just not very good. I don't think it's a lack of effort. It's a lack of they're not a great football team. But you don't have to be a great football team, I think, to bring your all. This is the battle of the Paul Bunyan axe. That's what they call this rivalry, Wisconsin and Minnesota. Minnesota knows that they've got to. It's not going to be easy, but they have to win this game to get to that 6th win and bowl eligibility. PJ Fleck's a motivator. He doesn't have a great football team, but he can motivate a group of kids. And I'm sure he's going to be able to do that with some kind of speech coming into this game. And quite frankly, I don't trust Jack Cohn and the Wisconsin offense enough in this kind of price range against any kind of competent, motivated team. So I'm actually going to go against Joe here with Minnesota, and I'll actually make that official, plus 10.5. Now that we can get 10.5, I like it a little bit more now.
Okay, so both of you are going to get the, this line is dead flat on 10.5 across the board, every single site. No one even has 10 or 11 that I'm seeing. So we're both going to give you the pinnacle line. Ian's going to get Minnesota plus 10.5 minus 106, and Joe Gavassi is going to take Wisconsin minus 10.5 minus 106. Joe Gavassi's website, of course, again, is joegavassisports.com. Go there. There's a lot of free information, a lot of very inexpensive, valuable stuff that he sells. Joe Gavassi, before we bring on Alvin Porty, quickly tell us what people can find right now at this point in the season at joegavassisports.com.
Well, you want to check out those articles, of course, as I've written numerous articles for the football season, which will both help home handicappers as well as give you some perspective on the game. Also, with college basketball tipping off, it is absolutely imperative that you check out my money management article. It will tell you how to handle your bankroll in these days when we're grinding through win after win in college hoops. That is an imperative read at joegavassisports.com.
Sounds great. Joe Gavassi, thanks so much. We'll talk to you again very soon.
Look forward to it, guys. Happy holidays to everybody out there, and good luck.
Okay, great.
Happy Thanksgiving, Joe. Take care.
Thanks very much, Joe Gavassi. All right, so Ian Cameron, I'm being told that Al McMorty is not here yet, so we don't have him on the line yet. We're hoping that he will come up. Is he there now? All right, so we don't know whether or not we're okay. So we don't know whether or not we're having some technical issues with Al McMorty. So the question is, what are we going to fill up our time with, Ian Cameron? Thankfully, you sent 9 college football games and 4 NFL games, or maybe 4, it was 5 NFL games that you are wanting to talk about. So the answer to that is easily we will be able to fill up the next half hour.
We've got something to talk about. Yeah,
I think
we have something.
We'll find some shit to talk about, Ian Cameron. All right, so 9 college games you sent: Nebraska, Iowa, Arkansas, Missouri, Virginia, Virginia Tech, Oklahoma, West Virginia, Kentucky, Louisville, Utah State, Boise State, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, an interesting game right there, Purdue, Indiana, SMU, Tulsa. Those are all the games that Ian Cameron wants to talk about, and we haven't even started with the list of NFL games that he sent. Pick one you want to talk about, your favorite one, and let's talk about it, Ian Cameron.
Yeah, let's talk Kentucky-Louisville. I mean, okay. Kentucky long-term has not been a good big-time double-digit favorite under Mark Stoops, and we saw that again last week against Middle Tennessee State. Failed to cover. I don't care. Louisville is DEAD, dead. This team is quit. The Bobby Petrino firing did not bring any sort of inspiring effort, a rally the troops kind of performance at all. For the new interim coach there at Louisville. Another pathetic outing last week against NC State. They've laid down. They're playing I know it's a rivalry game. You think they get up for it, but I think these kids are beaten down mentally. They're beaten down physically. The defense has been a sieve. I think Kentucky can hand off to Benny Snell left, Benny Snell right, Benny Snell up the middle. Terry Wilson at the quarterback can keep the ball, and they'll still be able to score points in bunches at will against this horrendous Louisville defense. Yeah, I'll lay the 17 with Kentucky. Louisville is that bad.
Yeah, are they though? That's the thing. It's like whenever you see a game like this, it's like anytime you see an underdog of this huge of a line, of course you're going to be talking about a team that is either really that bad or appears to be that bad, and there's a ton of negatives. That's why you're getting so many points. My sense is just this one on paper screams Kentucky. That's why I'd want to take Louisville at this point in the season, but you disagree with that. You think they've literally quit. They don't get up for this one game, Cameron. One game. Unless they show me they had a chance to get up for NC State. They did. They had a chance to get up for Syracuse on national TV 2 weeks ago on a Friday night, and they didn't. Why are they going to get up now? I can't see it unless they do something that's totally out of the ordinary for this floundering, pathetic team. I can't see it. So Kentucky to me. All right, minus 17, minus 110. Now we got 8 more to pick from here in your list of college games. Pick another one, Ian Cameron.
Yeah, SMU Tulsa. I'll take SMU here as the short road favorite. This is a team that's still playing for bowl eligibility. It's maddening last week how many times they shot themselves in the foot. They didn't have any toes left after that game. They shot all the toes off with how many mistakes they made, penalties they made, turnovers they made in the red zone. It was a frustrating loss for them against Memphis, but Tulsa's even worse. Well, Tulsa's much worse than Memphis. Memphis is at least somewhat competent. They can move the ball offensively, good quarterback play, good running back. Tulsa can't do anything on offense. They can't run it. They can't throw it. Seth Boomer is boomer bust, as I said last week on the show. He's been terrible. They lose to a Navy team that's not all that good last week, as I expected they would. Tulsa's a complete fade. SMU should get their act together. If one team can screw this up, maybe it is SMU, but they're playing for bowl eligibility. Tulsa is a hapless team. Yeah. I'll gladly lay this short price with SMU.
No, I agree with you on that one. SMU's problem is just that they have no defense, but Tulsa doesn't appear to pose that much of a challenge to them. And when I saw this line, I agree. I don't like it when there's a play that I'm liking. I don't quite understand why the line is where it is. Does the line make sense to you? Why is this such a short line here?
There's going to be some lines that don't make sense. Right. In fact, I'm going to segue right into another one here in a minute. It's a perfect segue, actually. But yes. This one, to me, looks cheap. I think SMU on the road's been very, very spotty. I understand that. The road results have been hit or miss. But Tulsa, to me, there's nothing to like. I mean, their defense has declined. They're giving up more points, more yards on a weekly basis. Their offense has been dormant all season long. The quarterback play's been, what a downgrade from the likes of, remember when they had some great quarterbacks? G.J. Kinney at this program, Dane Evans at this program, and now you got Luke Skipper and Seth Boomer, and neither one can play, unfortunately, for this Tulsa team. So I don't mind laying 2.5. I'm going to segue right into another college game I like, Virginia Tech. It's on my list. Yeah, I laid 3.5 with Virginia. early in the week. It's up to 4.5. I think there's still some 4.5s out there. I see it at Heritage, 4.5 right now. We'll lay 4.5 with Virginia. Here's another dead team, Virginia Tech, 0-4 straight up, 0-4 against the spread in their last 4 games. Every one of those defeats by double-digit margins. They can't stop anybody on defense. As I've said many times, I'm sick of hearing about Bud Foster and how good his defenses have been in the past. That's the past. Now he doesn't have a good defense. They've been banged up in the secondary. They're not good against the pass either. They haven't been able to stop anybody on the ground. That's bad news going up against a balanced Virginia offense. Bryce Perkins can throw it through the air. They can hand the ball off to a very solid Virginia ground game as well. And Virginia Tech beat Virginia last year 10-0. I think Virginia wants to make amends for that. And this Virginia Tech team, I know it's a rivalry game at home. You want to get up for this game, but I just think they're not very good. And Virginia's going to come into this game wanting to avenge that loss last year. So I don't mind going on the road here, laying 4.5 with Virginia. They're the better team this year.
All right. Well, we do line chop here, Ian Cameron. And one of the nice things about being completely honest and completely transparent is it also allows us to line chop and give the absolute best line that we can give you at any given point when we quote the line. And Bet Online actually has -4, -115. The Greek also has SMU -2, -110. So those are lines we're going to use for you right now. SMU -2, -110, and Virginia -4, -115. And I was feeling the same way about this one after our breakdown and analysis of the Miami game last week. I definitely thought that Miami was the play last week, and here I'm feeling kind of the same way. Virginia Tech, if they don't have a defense, then they pretty much have nothing. And the question is there any reason to expect something different from Virginia Tech than what we've seen recently? You know, these rivalry games can be very, very quirky. You know what I mean? How many times? You know, we'll say this probably 5 or 8 times this week. Where did that come from? Some team that looks just like Virginia Tech looks like they look heading into the rivalry game as an underdog, all of a sudden looks like a different team out of nowhere, and we're like, where did that come from?
You're going to see some of those. You will. You will. Maybe it's one of these 2 games we just talked about. Maybe Tulsa rises up from the ashes. Maybe Virginia Tech rises up from the ashes, Pete. That's does something that we really don't expect. But really, you're going on ifs and maybes. And ifs and buts were candies and nuts. We'd all have a Merry Christmas, as that old saying says. You know, so you can't go on ifs and maybes and buts. You got to go on what you've seen. And I'm one of those handicappers that I go on what I've seen. And what I've seen is lack of effort, lack of execution, week after week after week, from the Tulsas of the world, from the Louisvilles of the world, from the Virginia Techs of the world. And I have not seen effort or execution from any of those teams. So until I see it, I'm betting against them, especially at reasonable numbers. And I think SMU's a reasonable number. Virginia's a reasonable number. Maybe not so reasonable with Kentucky, but Louisville truly has been that bad. When you lose almost every game by 20, 30 points lately, you can lay 17 against them. So that's the way I'm going. I mean, these teams, I don't trust them one bit. Those 3 bet against teams we just talked about.
Great answer to that question, Ian Cameron. And yeah, there's a lot of variance and expecting the unexpected in college sports. So when you use your approach to these games, you are going to be surprised and wind up on the wrong side of things maybe a third of the time. But more often than not, you will wind up being on the right side of things. Great answer to that, Ian Cameron. And the answer is to know that these kinds of unexpected results will happen in college sports, especially. All right, let's we might not get Al McMorty today, so let's just go through all of your games. Pick another one that interests you from college, Ian, and then we'll move on to NFL. And then do you mind covering the games that we needed to cover with Al McMorty, which includes Notre Dame USC? You can talk about that, right, Ian?
Of course, I can talk any game, anytime. So you mentioned one of my games, Pete. What do you
Ian
got?
Cameron.
I forget my own list of games. What did I say? What did I submit?
Utah State, Boise State. That's an interesting one, right? Boise State was not, remember when they played Fresno State, it wasn't quite the same as these other games that we're talking about, but Boise State was, again, a home dog, and there was a reason for that. They were looking like they had some issues on their team, and Fresno State was coming in with, looking great, big motivation, and of course, Boise State did wind up being the right side, proving to be the right side. They wound up getting the outright win there. They still have issues, though, and Utah State's been great this year, catching just a small number on the road. I'm guessing that you like Utah State here. What do you like?
You know what? I went against Boise when they played Fresno on this blue turf, and of course, Boise found a way to get it done. I'm a little gun shy doing it again now. I like this Utah State team a lot. I really, really do. Jordan Love's been great. They have a great running back, great receivers, a dynamic, explosive offense. There's no question about that. I thought this Boise State defense was going to collapse. I'll give them credit. The last few weeks, they've actually played pretty solid defensively for a team that's littered with injuries on that side of the ball. They've lost some leaders and some of their best players on defense this season. David Moa, the defensive tackle. Pierce, one of the seniors in their secondary. Wimpy is his name, linebacker, leading tackler on this team before he suffered a season-ending injury 2 weeks ago. And yet, despite all those injuries, this team's playing solid defense. I just have that feeling this is the game where that Boise State, those injuries on defense show up a little bit for Boise State, playing this Utah State team that has put up points in bunches every single week. You remember early in the season, Pete, first game of the season, we saw Utah State walk into East Lansing and take on Michigan State and just move the ball up and down the field.
Yeah.
We're like, geez, how bad is this Michigan State defense? No, not bad Michigan State defense. This is good Utah State offense that did that, and I think they're going to show that here in this game. However, Utah State's defense, I think they're going to give up some points here. I like what I've seen out of Brett Rippon. Brett Rippon has taken this team under control. He's played some great football the last few weeks. He's taking care of the ball. He's getting the ball in the end zone for this Boise State team. And this Utah State defense is still a little sketchy, and they have not faced a flight of good offensive teams in recent weeks. They've faced a lot of weak offenses. This is going to be one of the best offenses they've probably faced in a very, very long time. So I'm passing on the side, but I do like this total, 67.5. I like it over the total. I think we're going to see points. Utah State plays very fast. Boise State plays with a little bit of tempo. I checked the weather forecast in Boise. Cold on Saturday night, but clear. Very little wind. Not expected to be any precipitation. So about as good as you could ask for a late November night in Boise, Idaho for football from a weather standpoint. So I think we'll see points on both sides. I'll go over 67.5 in this game.
All right. So you don't want to side on this one?
I would still, part of me saying take another shot against Boise State, I lean Utah State here, but I'm not going to again. I do respect that Boise State's only laying less than a field goal at home, and they just beat arguably the other best team in the conference. That was Fresno State at home just recently. So again, and Utah State has feasted on a lot of weak teams and a very, very weak schedule the last several weeks. We'll see if they can get it done. So I lean Utah State, but it's just a lean. My official play here is going to be over 67.5.
All right. Well, once again, we're going to line shop for you, Ian Cameron. Everyone watching right now, line shopping is so important. SBR Odds is a free line shopping tool that you can use here, SBRodds.com. Market is uncertain here. 67.5 is widely available. So is 67. So is 66.5. Heritage and Bet365, both at 66.5. So we'll give you that one. Over 66.5 minus 110. Anyone watching right now, if you think, those half points and points don't matter, they do. Trust us. Right, Ian Cameron? How long do you have to bet before you realize, okay, yes, they do? A week and a half?
But that's the thing. SPRodds.com is not there for decoration.
Right.
It's not there for show. It's there to be used. It's there to be used as an informative tool. It's there to be used to give you the best line and best price with every wager in every sport that you're considering making. And believe me, you beat you get a better number by 5 cents, 10 cents from a money line standpoint, or you get a better number by a half point or a full point on a football or basketball game. That's going to add up long term. That's going to turn losses into pushes. It's going to turn pushes into wins when you do that. And SBRodds.com is going to help you avoid those mistakes.
Not bad. You're a better pitchman than I would have guessed, Ian Cameron. That was a nice little endorsement
there. We go.
there.
How smooth was that?
Yeah, exactly. Much smoother than I expected. All right, let's get back into more handicapping right now with Ian Cameron. I love this guy. Also, Ian Cameron, coming off a terrible week, still up about 5 units overall in this show, and has a great record overall in this pre-snap read show long-term. Nebraska Iowa is another game that you picked, and this one, it's interesting that you picked this one because Nebraska, of course, turned a major corner, right? Their record, let me see, they're 5-1-1 ATS over their last 7 games, but Iowa, of course, is a team that can cover any spread, as we saw last week. 15-point road favorite, didn't matter, got the blowout win over Illinois. A few ATS losses before that, but those were tough assignments, right? Northwestern's been a revelation this year, so maybe we give them a pass for that. And then 2 tough games against 2 good teams on the road, Penn State and Purdue. Before that, Iowa had been covering in their own right, so I'm not sure what to make of this one. I'm not sure I want to bet against Nebraska here, given how much they turned a legitimate corner in the middle of the season. Why'd you pick this one, Ian?
Yeah, I picked it. This is a great rivalry. There was a time Iowa-Nebraska was a huge, huge rivalry game on this Black Friday. They play Black Friday, it seems, every single year on this weekend, and it used to be a huge rivalry when both programs were obviously better, especially Nebraska were better than they are now. It's sort of dissipated a little bit. Iowa definitely has had the better of it the last 3 seasons. They've won and covered each of the last 3 meetings head-to-head against Nebraska. There's no denying that. all that being said, we're talking laying double digits in a rivalry game, and I don't still think Iowa's a team that I trust in this kind of price range. I mean, okay, good for you. You beat Illinois and beat the snot out of them, beat the tar out of them last week, 63-0. Good for you. Illinois quit. I mean, I put no stock into that. None. Zero. Before that, they lose outright as 10-point favorites against Northwestern. You lose at Purdue, lose at Penn State, and even the Maryland win when they were laying 9.5, 23-0. The offense was pedestrian in that game. Maryland didn't have a passing game that day, and they could stop the run, and that was all she wrote for the offense. Nebraska can run the football. Nebraska's averaging 215 yards per game, 5.5 yards per carry. I think they're going to pose a threat here for Iowa. And obviously, Martinez at the quarterback spot is still a young guy who's still learning for Scott Frost in year one under this offense. And we saw the growing pains last week, even though they beat Michigan State 9-6. But, I think they're going to be able to do enough offensively here. It's not going to be easy against Iowa's defense, but this is just more against Iowa's offense. I don't think Iowa's offense is good enough to trust them laying 10. And I will say this about Nebraska. They have started to play a little bit better on the defensive side of the football, including last week in that win against Michigan State. So it's a rivalry game. It's double digits. It's been somewhat of a disappointing season for Iowa. 7-4. They thought they could be in the Big Ten West conversation. That didn't happen. You're seeing Nebraska now starting to cover numbers. 4-1 straight up. 4-1 against the spread as well in their last 5 games. I'm going to take Nebraska here, plus 10. I don't trust Iowa as double-digit chalk. I rarely have. Long-term, going back years under Kirk Ferentz, this is a bad point spread roll for Iowa, laying double digits at home. Remember, last time they were in this role, they lost outright against Northwestern just a couple weeks ago. Yeah, give me Nebraska, plus 10. Rivalry game. I think this is one dog that shows up in this game.
All right, Ian, well, we do line shop for you, but unfortunately we can't use stale lines, so we're not going to be able to give you a 10. You're going to have to take a 9. Plus 9 minus 109. The market has moved in Nebraska's favor. Is that okay? Plus 9 minus 109 at Pinnacle.
That's fine, actually, as long as it's above a touchdown. I think 7 would be my cutoff point with this one, so 9's fine.
And it did open at 7.5. All right, so let's go back to the games that the 3 games that we wanted to cover with Al McMorty that we didn't get to. Let's just get your thoughts on it, Ian Cameron. I know we didn't ask you to cover these games, so you definitely do not have to give an official pick on any of them. But let's just get your thoughts, see what you have to think, see what you have to say about them. First game, of course, Notre Dame USC. Now, I was on Syracuse last week. Shout out to DJ Big Boss from the Low Shack in the Bag show who had a great call on the under after it had moved from 61.5 to 65. He said he didn't care at all about the move. He loved the under, and he also warned us off of Syracuse. DJ Big Boss, of course, follows Notre Dame religiously and just nailed that game. So here we are once again. I got burned last week fading Notre Dame. I'm looking at this line. I'm looking at this situation. Of course, UCLA covered last week, and that was a pick that we did give here on the Pre-Snap Read show against USC. But I'm looking at this game. I'm looking at this line. I'm looking at this situation. It's got to be USC getting double digits, right, Ian? Is there any way you take Notre Dame here laying all these points?
That's the thing for Notre Dame. They don't have to win by margin. Win by a point will make this team extremely happy. They will be pleased as punch walking out at Los Angeles and that Coliseum on Saturday night if they win this game by a single point. That being said, I don't trust USC enough to take them even getting double digits. This is a team that's mind-numbingly pissed games away, found ways to lose on a weekly basis. The offense has regressed. I have been very, very disappointed to see how JT Daniels has struggled moving the football with this USC offense. Their defense hasn't been that bad, but it's also been a little bit banged up. And I know Syracuse had issues last week. They lose Eric Dungy. It was like a shock to the entire team. And Tommy DeVito had to step in at the quarterback last week. And I think maybe Syracuse didn't exactly respond to it mentally right away. And Notre Dame took advantage of it. But it was still an impressive, dominant, woodshed beatdown by Notre Dame in that game. Gives me a sense they're peaking at the right time here. It's a rivalry game, and USC, it's their one last shot maybe to do something, and they can't get still bowl eligible for sure if they win this game. But I'm not sure that bowl eligibility for a program and players that go to USC is that big a deal. You expect bigger and better things than just getting to a minor rinky-dink bowl game at this stage of the season. There's rumors that Clay Helton's been fired, yet I saw someone on Twitter that is a source with USC saying he's likely to be back, believe it or not, next season. Sources close to USC football think he'll be back next season. So make of that what you will. Who knows how the players are thinking about that right now. Talent-wise, position for position, USC is not 11 points worse than Notre Dame.
Right.
But the results are not meshing with the quality of recruit and the quality of player that they're putting out on the field right now. I mean, some of these losses for USC have been unspeakingly bad, but all they have to do is compete here in order to cover this number. Tough game, Pete. Again, I think it's a lot of points to trust Notre Dame in, but I'm not in love with this dog. It would still have to be Notre Dame for me or pass, so I'll pass.
Really? You're going to pass. Notre Dame or pass? See, I'm looking at this one. I'm thinking I've seen this situation so many times in college football. You have a team like USC, underwhelming, underperforming all year long, but with the talent, now they're just getting what appears to be, at face value, a ridiculous, a double-digit home dog. I know Notre Dame's undefeated. They're a top 3 team and all that, but USC, a double-digit home dog. I feel like I have to take that anytime. Similar to Ohio State as an underdog. It rarely happens, but when it does happen, you have to take them. And every time they are in that position, there are good reasons why, right? Anytime you see USC as a double-digit home underdog, obviously, by definition, there's going to be strong reasons to not want to take them, or they wouldn't be a double-digit underdog, right? But those are the spots where you do wind up taking them, in my experience in college football betting, Ian Cameron. You know what I'm saying here, right, Ian?
Oh, I do. I mean, if USC has an A game in them, that's the question. Do they have an A game in them? An A game for USC in this game probably means they cover this number and give Notre Dame everything they can handle. But will we see that from them against a Notre Dame team that, really, to be honest, since Ian Book's taken over at quarterback, they've taken off. They've been absolutely terrific, and they've gone on the road and bludgeoned some teams. They bludgeoned Syracuse, although neutral field there, bludgeoned Virginia Tech, bludgeoned Navy. They've had Northwestern was a good performance by them, and that's a good Northwestern team.
Yes.
The way they've come on down the stretch. So Notre Dame's peaking right now. No rush, even with all these points, to step in front of them.
All right, I'm gonna do a little bit. Let's make this interesting, Ian Cameron. You want to? We have no Al McMorty here, so let's spice things up a little bit. I will make USC an official play right now. Now that it's over 10, I'll take USC plus 11 minus 106. I can already feel in the comment section, no, Pete, don't do it. Pete, don't do it. Notre Dame rolls by 20. Notre Dame rolls by 2 touchdowns. I might be wrong here, but I will make this one official, and I'm going to bet this one, and I'll throw it on my record. USC plus 11 minus 106 at Pinnacle. I'll make that one an official pick. All right, Ian Cameron. Now let's move on to Arizona State, Arizona. I don't know if you looked at that game that much. I did not. Give anything about that one.
Yeah, Arizona State, Arizona is fascinating. I mean, Arizona to me just got absolutely dismantled on defense by Washington State last week. I mean, it was just men against boys. Gardner Minshew moving the ball against that Civ Arizona defense. And that's been Arizona's problem all year. The defense just hasn't been very good, not whatsoever. Arizona State sort of cooled off from their start. No question about that for a Herm Edwards team. This is the Territorial Cup, as they call it, with Arizona State, Arizona. I probably got to take Arizona State here. I mean, it's a pick 'em price range. Just pick the winner. You're probably going to cash your ticket. I know Khalil Tate had a little renaissance and a resurgence the last few weeks, but a defense as bad as Arizona's is not one I trust in a price range where you have to win the game to cover a number. It's not going to be on my card, but I'll lean Arizona State for the viewers out there.
All right, but you're not going to make it an official play?
No.
Okay. Just a lean for Ian Cameron. All right. And then let's just quickly talk about the only NFL game that we were supposed to cover with Al McMorty, and that is Miami against Indianapolis. And obviously Miami is having all kinds of problems against the spread. They lost as a big underdog on the road last week. And Indianapolis, the Colts, coming off that big blowout win against Tennessee, is Indianapolis really that much better than Miami right now? They're 3-0-1 against the spread over their last 4 games, going back to before their bye. I don't know. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, this is a fascinating game. Of course, for Miami, the big news is Ryan Tannehill back at quarterback. And after seeing Brock Osweiler for the last several weeks, you're going to be very happy to have Ryan Tannehill back in this football game. I know Drew Brees has been amazing. Jared Goff's been amazing. Patrick Mahomes has been amazing this season. Tom Brady continues to play well, of course, but let's give Andrew Luck credit for the Indianapolis Colts. This guy's been phenomenal for the last few weeks. They're putting up points in bunches. They're moving the ball. They got the big play offense back. T.Y. Hilton's making big plays down the field. Marlon Mack. Goodness gracious, Indy's finally found a running back that's actually been serviceable and productive for them. And it's been a long time since they've had one. So this Colts offense is dangerous. they're not going to be scared by this Miami defense. This Dolphins defense has really fallen on hard times. They've not played well lately. I do think Miami's offense, though, with Tannehill back, is going to get an injection with him back. I think they're going to – and remember, Miami's still not completely out of it yet. So yeah. I think you're going to get an effort from the Miami team. I'm going to stay out of the side, but I think we get a shootout inside the Dome there at Lucas Oil Stadium. 51's the total. Indy's putting up 30 points, it seems, on a weekly basis. They did it again. I think you can get Miami into the 20s and easily get this one over the total. I'll go over 51, official play, Dolphins and Colts.
Really? You want to make that one an official play, huh?
Absolutely. Colts offense on fire. Dolphins offense much better now with Ryan Tannehill under center.
All right, we'll give you the bookmaker line here. All right, hold on one second. Miami and Indiana over 51 minus 105. I'll tell you what. I gave. I don't know if you caught this, but I gave Indianapolis Colts season win total over in the beginning of the year. I don't exactly remember what I got. It was 6 or 6.5. I got a lot of flack for that, and of course they started off the season terribly. But now that they've won 4 in a row, they're at 5 wins, and now my season team total, and if they're obviously a big favorite here, if they get this one, they're already at 6. That was one of my picks. I took a ton of flack for it. I can't even tell you how much flack I took for taking the Colts season win total over at the beginning of the year. Now it's looking like kind of a shrewd play, right, Ian?
I don't think it was crazy. I mean, they did still have Andrew Luck.
Yeah,
you could
right.
make a case Andrew Luck, when he's playing healthy and he's playing well, one of the better quarterbacks in this division. You had to figure Jacksonville would regress, maybe not this badly with the Jacksonville regression, but they'd step back a bit. Houston, you never know. They have the talent, but they don't have the coach. With Tennessee, a new coach in Mike Vrabel, could Marcus Mariota stay healthy and be good? There were some questions there. So, it was a wide open division to me coming into this season. And, taking a shot with Indy was not insane when you got an Andrew Luck. I've got issues with a lot of the roster, but when you got a quarterback that can play, that's finally healthy, you got a shot. And clearly because of Andrew Luck being healthy, playing well, you have a shot now with that over win total.
I got 6.5 minus 135. So if they pull out a win here, then all they need is one more, and I think they can do it. Obviously, they're a big favorite, but I was thinking that Miami, coming off the bye, in general, I look to fade home teams off the bye, but to play on road teams off the bye, and I was thinking that Miami might be the play here just because they're off the bye and because it's kind of like a buy low spot for Miami. Would you agree with that or not really?
Yeah, I agree. I lean Miami. I think the stronger bet for me is over the total, though, in this game. Colts might be I could still see Colts winning this game, so them in a teaser might be worth a look. But if just as a straight bet, at above 7, I'd look Miami. But I'm just going to stick to over in this game.
All right, so that's it for the games that we had to cover. We got about 5 more minutes to cover whatever you want to talk about, Ian Cameron. Any of the NFL games that you sent, any of the college games that you sent that we didn't discuss. You sent Washington, Dallas, Atlanta, New Orleans, Giants, Philly, and Seattle, Carolina for NFL. Other college games we didn't discuss: Purdue, Indiana, Tennessee, Vanderbilt. That's an interesting one. Oklahoma, West Virginia, and Arkansas, Missouri. Pick a couple of those and talk about them for a minute.
Yeah, we'll do some NFL since we're on that wavelength. Sure. Let's do Washington, Dallas. I know Washington's got issues on Thanksgiving. There's no question. Colt McCoy in for Alex Smith. If anybody watched Washington's offense the last couple of weeks, Alex Smith's not played well. All right, he has really not played well. I think the switch from him to McCoy is not as big as some people think. McCoy has started a ton of games in this league. He's been in Jay Gruden's system here in Washington for years as a backup. He knows how to run the playbook, execute the plays, and I think he's going to come in and play solid against Dallas tomorrow. This is not the role I trust Dallas in. Jason Garrett's burned money hand over fist laying more than a touchdown in his career, especially at home as a home favorite. Washington's got injuries along the O-line. It's a concern for sure. The receiving corps has been banged up a little bit. But the quotes coming out of Washington is that they're battling. They beat Tampa 2 weeks ago with all the injuries. They could have beat Houston last week amid losing Alex Smith in that game, and they still almost won that game. This is a team and they're still talking positively going into this game. We can win this division. We're going to rally together and get this done. Next man up mentality. Positive quotes coming out of Washington. And they already beat Dallas once this season. Dallas plays a lot of close games. They rarely ever blow someone out. I think this is an inflated overreaction line. I'll take Washington at 7 or more in this game as an official pick.
Okay, it is headed down. It opened at 7.5. 7s are still available. Intertops has 7 minus 110, as well as a few other places. So we will give you that one. Washington Redskins plus 7 minus 110. Just to review the picks that Ian Cameron has given so far: Minnesota plus 10.5. Kentucky minus 7. 17. SMU -2. Virginia -4. Utah State Boise over 66.5. Nebraska +9. Miami Indianapolis over 51. Washington Redskins +7. And I have just given one play, which might prove to be an incredibly stupid play. Again, fading Notre Dame. But I did give USC +11 -106. Ian Cameron, pick one more game, college or NFL, that you want to talk about.
You know what? Because Thanksgiving's tomorrow, let's do another Thanksgiving NFL game. Atlanta, New Orleans.
Okay.
We're going to go over the total here. 59.5 is the last I checked. Yeah, 59.5 at Pinnacle, 59.5 at 5 Dimes. We'll go over the total in this game. New Orleans, to me, you know, what more can you say about them offensively? They hung 43 points on Atlanta in the first meeting. Atlanta's defense was a lot healthier then than it is now. They are going to have Deion Jones back. That's going to help, but there's still a lot of guys missing on that side of the football. Saints offense is a freight train right now. They should be good for 30, if not 40 points in this game. They really should move the ball at will, just like they have the last few weeks against this Atlanta defense, which has been terrible. But Atlanta's offense can move the ball, and the weakness in New Orleans' defense is the pass defense. The run defense has been really good for New Orleans. Not so much the pass defense, and it's a pass-heavy Falcon attack with Ryan at quarterback, with Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones, Mohamed Sanu. I think he's going to be able to find those targets down the field, at least get to 17, 20 points, 24 points. New Orleans will take care of the rest and get this thing over the total. Totals of 57 or higher in the NFL since 2000. 14 games with a total of 57 or higher in the NFL since 2000. Those games are 12-1-1 to the over. That's right, 12-1-1 to the over. These high extreme total games just fly over in the NFL. And we saw it with Rams Chiefs. That total was 63 on Monday night. Flew over the total. 57 or higher totals in the NFL. 12-1-1 to the over since 2000. Let's ride that again here with Falcon Saints. Over 59.5.
Okay, so we're going to give you, let's see, we're going to give you over 59.5 -109. That's the current line at Pinnacle. And I guess we can wrap that up. That's it for the Pre-Snaps Read Show for today. Thanks so much, Ian Cameron. Ian Cameron, we have a little bit of time. If people want to get in touch with you, how can they get in touch with you? Tell us what else you're doing outside of SBR right now.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing lots of things, Pete. I mean, we're on Twitter at Bobano. Make sure you follow me on their Twitter at Bobano. We've got my SBR Play of the Day videos always go up there, links to all the video shows I do here. We've got free plays on a daily basis. My premium work you can find alongside me, Big Man on Campus, and Donnie Right Side at rightwager.com. That's where you can get my top plays, premium plays on a 9-1, 90% NHL run with the premium plays at rightwager.com. We're red hot on the ice. And we're looking to continue that at rightwager.com. So that's where you can find me, Twitter, rightwager.com.
Thanks so much, Ian Cameron. Talk to you again very soon.
All right, Pete, happy Thanksgiving to you and all our viewers. Take care.